Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Adele Taylor with the Garden State Film Festival, and I'm excited because I'm here with writer and director Doug Bollinger of Rock, Paper, Scissors Film. Doug, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Adele. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about the film for those of us that haven't seen it yet?
Sure. So my name is Doug Bollinger, and I'm the writer-director of Rock, Paper, Scissors. And Rock, Paper, Scissors is a thriller which deals with the motif of revenge, and it deals with a relationship between a couple that is on the verge of maybe breaking up or not, and then they are the victims of a trauma which either brings them together or tears them apart. And hopefully you'll see the film and find out the answer to that.
Well, I can tell you that I watched the film and I'm in love with it. So I love thrillers.
Thank you.
That's my favorite genre. For those of us that, again, have not seen the film yet, can you tell us a little bit of inspiration behind the film? What made you specifically write and direct this one in particular?
So a couple of things. I worked on some smaller projects that found a home on some platforms, and it inspired me to do something a little bit bigger, a little bit better than what I have been doing recently, which are really super low budget horror films. And I had an outline for this story in my head for a while, and I recruited one of my dear friends, Josh Lee, to co-write it with me. And then once I got him involved, it started taking on a little bit of a different persona. And then once I got the other team involved, the actors and our amazing director of photography and editor and crew, and our composers and our sound engineers, it honestly turned out way better than my idea was, for sure.
I love that. Now, you already mentioned that you directed other films. What was something completely different that you learned while directing this film in particular that you didn't come across with your other films?
Oh, great question. So I think with this film, I was way more open from the actor's point of view. I think in the past, I was so nervous about wanting things to be my way. And I think I was fairly rigid and on a time schedule and on a budget, so much so that I didn't have as much of an open mind to actors, which is a little crazy because that's how I started as an actor. So I respect the craft, I get it. And on other projects, I just didn't give them as much leeway as I did with this. And I'm glad that I did, because our two leads in particular, Timothy Harrison and Jeff Liberty, they brought something to the table that was not in the script, to be honest. And as a writer, admitting that and recognizing that you're getting something from the actor that you really didn't even intend, that's way better than your original intention, that made the story more compelling. And once I saw that in the first couple of days of shooting, I realized, okay, wow, I think we've got to go in this direction as opposed to my initial idea. And they really influenced me that way.
Wow, that's amazing. And adaptability is so important, not just in your passion, but in your craft where you're working at. So I'm glad that you brought that up. In terms of casting, how did you go about that? How did you find the people that you wanted to really amplify this message and portray the voice?
So this is a great example of keeping connections and relationships, okay? And this is something that everybody can understand. So when you keep connections and relationships, they eventually pay off. And that's not why we keep these connections and relationships, but that's sometimes the fruit of that labor. So perfect example, our lead actor, Timothy Harrison, was someone that I didn't cast in a film that I did 5 years prior to doing this. I didn't. Okay. And we had a relationship, we kept the relationship, we talked, I let her know how amazing she was, it just wasn't the right fit. We kept in touch over the course of many years, and that is a twofold situation. Number one, me keeping an open mind because this was a great talent that just wasn't a fit for the role. And B, on her end, and this is something as actors we do sometimes, we get kind of closed off when someone says no to us, and we put up that wall. And that to me is a big mistake, and here's why. So many years later, as Timothy and I kept in touch, the day before I was about to post this as a submission on Backstage for actors all around the New York, New Jersey area, she posted something about a project. And since I followed her social media, I emailed her about it, said, oh, wow, this looks interesting. She said, yeah, I'm still doing it and loving it. Thanks for keeping in touch. And I told her, look out for this. I'm going to post it tomorrow.
Okay. And
she did, and she submitted, and she turned out to be the one that we cast. And that was an example of maintaining relationships, being so important, one, and two, sometimes you're just not the right fit, no matter how talented you are. And Timothy was a great example of that.
Now, you talked about, well, you've given, sorry, a lot of great advice. If you could give 3 important pieces of advice for the upcoming generation of filmmakers, or maybe people out there that are just struggling with finding their passion, finding their voice, how to communicate that into a film, what would you say to them as those top 3 biggest pieces of advice you can give?
Wow, that is a really great and wonderfully complicated question, and I will try to encapsulate with three good answers. Number one, it's all about the story. It's all about a story, whether it's a short film, 1 or 2 minutes. And in our block, by the way, I'm really excited. We've got some amazing short films that are in our block, and some of which I'm really familiar with. So even in that 2 to 3 minute storyline, what is the story? That's number one. Everything is dictated by the story. Nothing else matters. Whether you're shooting it on your phone or with $100,000 equipment, it's all about story. So that's number one, get the right story. Number two, find people that you like to work with, that you want to be around, and that are really super talented. Because if you find those people, get your hooks in them and keep them near you. Keep them in your world working with them. And everyone on this project was someone that I had worked with before on something else, everyone. And if I didn't, somebody close to me did. So that's it. So number one, story. Number two, build that network. And number three, and this one's going to make some filmmakers a little unhappy, I'll be honest, because I know that they did this and they may watch this and say, who the hell does this guy think he is? It's when it comes down to the credits. And I remember on the first film that I directed, I was with a New York City crew, and they were this grizzled group of New York veterans, and they taught me how to do this. I didn't learn it at film school. I learned from this crew. We're at the wrap party before we did the credits, which is a cool, fun thing to do. Wrap party, you've worked hard, you get together. And they said to me, hey, Doug, when you do the credits, are you going to use that credit, a film by Doug Bollinger? And I said, I didn't really think of that. And they said, all right, well, you know, it's what many directors use. For those of you that don't know, it's a film by, and then insert your name here of the director. And I didn't really think of that. And I said, why do you ask? And they said, we really don't like that. And I said, oh, I want to know why. And they said, well, because it's never a film by one person. It's not, ever. And unless you created this film with you and you alone, to me, that credit makes me wince when I see it. And I keep hearing their voices. These New York City dudes that I'm still in touch with many, many years later, that it's never a film by one person. And I've taken that to heart. And on one film, the marketing company, the distribution company wanted to change that credit. And I didn't own the film and I couldn't say no. So when they did it, I called all the crew members and said, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. That wasn't my idea. So that's it. There's the three.
I love how you highlighted that it's important to recognize the team effort behind, especially something as magnitude as a film. So kudos to you for doing that. Can you tell us a little bit about the process more specifically? What was it like to work day in and day out on one film? How do you even keep motivated to do the same thing when I'm sure obstacles come up throughout the process?
So another thing that New York City crew told me when I learned, and by the way, why I got into writing and directing at all was I was hired on a film as an actor and they needed a first AD. And they said, do you want to do this? And I said, yes. I didn't know what a first AD was. I didn't even own a watch. So you filmmakers out there know that if you don't have a watch and you're a first AD, you really don't know what you're doing. So I went to the crew and said, I don't know what a first AD is. And they said, really? I said, yeah, I'm admitting it to you. They said, tomorrow, bring a notebook. And every day on set, they would tell me what I was supposed to be doing. And I kept this notebook and I wrote down everything. And I learned from them. So the other thing that they told me is every time we're on a film set, we find a villain to bring us together. Sometimes it's a whiny actor. Sometimes it's a tyrannical director. Sometimes it's bad food. So it's funny, like that was something I didn't think of. And this happens, I think, on big projects. It's easy to find a villain to kind of coalesce around and say, oh, that's the one thing we have in common. We all don't like this person. And I said, I want to change that because I get that that's the mentality. So when I started putting this team together, this was a team that wasn't going to have a villain. They weren't. And we didn't give them one. And we constantly got their input, constantly got their artistic license and input when we were creating this. And the process itself is super intense, and it's long days, and it's looking at each other and being near each other and getting frustrated and going through all that, as long as two things are happening. One, there's a constant mutual respect. And two, there is a built up trust. And that second one is easier when you're working with people that have worked with you. And that first one is easier if you're constantly communicating and letting people know what your expectations are and what your standards are. And I think if that is clearly stated and everyone's on the same page, then you have those long days. And at the end of the day, you're satisfied, you accomplished the task, and you're ready to attack the next day.
Love that. And get to see the end goal throughout that process. That is probably so important to you. Now, speaking about the process, I have to ask, and you can't say the finished product as your answer, what was the most memorable part about this entire thing from start to finish of you creating and directing this film?
Wow, I was totally unprepared for that. I have not been asked that before, and we've done some festivals. So kudos to you for asking me a unique question. And I've just used that minute of talking to you to now formulate my answer, which I'll now tell you.
All yours.
So the coolest moment for me was that when we were shooting a really difficult scene, and it was kind of the end of the day, and the director of photography, who was also the editor, he would download all our footage, and then he and I and my co-writer, co-producer Josh would sit down. The three of us would just kind of look at stuff. And there was a particular moment where we're shooting a scene, and if you've seen it, it's one of the more kind of gruesome scenes, but it's at night and it's outside, and it's just lit by a couple of headlights from a car. And we all just kind of stopped, and this wasn't color corrected, this wasn't really fancy, this was just kind of raw footage on a laptop. And when he got to that, the three of us and there was no sound to it, we just kind of watched it quietly for about 30 seconds, and he pressed pause. And we all just kind of looked at each other and said, that looks like a movie. And I'll never forget that moment, because whenever that moment comes up when we're watching the finished product, we reminisce about that moment, because it's when we thought, you know what, this could actually be a movie and not just a collection of images and sounds with our words that kind of may or may not make sense. That was for us the moment that we still talk about when the three of us get together, which is often. We're very good friends. So that was it for me.
Wow, that sounds like such a memorable moment, and one I'm sure other filmmakers can hopefully attest to. Now, you just mentioned you have entered other films. What made you festivals? What made you enter this film specifically into the Garden State Film Festival, and what does it mean to be accepted into the New Jersey Garden State Festival?
Well, anyone from Monmouth or Ocean County, and I imagine that'll be quite a few of the people that might watch something like this, knows what the term local means. And I am a local. I grew up in Monmouth County, and I currently can ride my bike to all the venues of the Garden State Film Festival. I live nearby. So the fact that I finally, and by the way, and I will freely admit this, I've submitted probably about 7 or 8 projects to the Garden State Film Festival, and I've always been denied. And frankly, I should have been denied if we're being honest. This is the best thing that I think I've worked on, and this is finally something that deserves to get in. So I'm really glad that this was the one. So Garden State was always something that for us was kind of the pinnacle of New Jersey film festivals. But to be honest, we had started the process so early that it was kind of out of our timeline. So it became something that we did other festivals before, because we just thought, oh, it's so far away, number one, and number two, we haven't gotten in before, we might not get in again. And I remember the moment when I got the email that we got in, and it's similar to those college applications. When you open the letter, you're looking for the word congratulations.
You're like,
and although it's been a long time since I've looked at letters like that, seeing that email and seeing congratulations in bold was a moment where I did yelp out loud a little bit in my house, and it's just me and my dog, so she reacted a little bit to that. And I screamed a little and immediately told as many people as I could, because this is one that I know my friends and family can come to, because I live in Monmouth County and I work in Ocean County, and the whole film was shot in Monmouth and Ocean County.
Oh, love it. Love it. Well, it's definitely, I mean, I've had the chance to watch it, and it is definitely worthy to ride your bikes to go see, walk down the street. I'm excited to see all of your friends and your family to supporting you. But for those of you that I'm sure are wondering when you can actually see this film, Rock, Paper, Scissors, it will be airing on Saturday, March 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Berkeley Hotel at the Garden State Film Festival. So make sure you come out, you support, you watch. I promise you guys, you won't be disappointed, and you get to catch some amazing films. So Doug, thank you so much for being here and speaking with us, for all of your amazing wisdom and tips and advice you've given. And we're excited to see you next month.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure. And you just mentioned our block. I do have to give a shout out to the movie Ethereal, which is part of our block. It's one of the shorts. Super cool story. One of the actors in that I've worked with on projects before. So we both found out at the same time and have been communicating. He's also a local. So we're excited to turn out for that block, and get your ticket soon because that's going to be sold out for sure. We're really excited to be a part of this. Thank you.
Really excited to be there, and I will be there as well. And maybe I'll be able to sneak an interview with you on our social media. So stay tuned for that as well.
Please, I'll be prepared for all these questions. So you're going to have to come.
Oh, I have new questions. No worries.
And which I have no doubt you will. Good luck with the 8 million other interviews you're going to do. And I hope they're all as fun as this one.
Thank you so much.